Hey everyone, this is Callie with the California Perspective, and today we are addressing the question of why you might want to wait to upgrade to a new M1 Mac, whether it be the M1 powered MacBook Air, MacBook Pro, or Mac Mini. Hello everyone, this is Callie with the California Perspective, and today we are addressing the question of why you might want to wait to upgrade to an M1 powered Mac. The new M1 chip is in the MacBook Pro, the MacBook Air, and the Mac Mini, and some of the early benchmarks are out showing the M1 to be a beast. My M1 MacBook Air has arrived in the mail, and I will be reviewing it for real-world testing, so make sure to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you don't miss that video. I found the last Intel MacBook Air to be deficient and had to take it back and replace it with a 2020 MacBook Pro. Claire and I built a 2009 Mac Pro, and I have a Y7000 Lenovo Legion with a discrete GPU, so my comparisons will be different from some of the other videos out there. So why might you want to wait? This is a first generation product, and Apple have left themselves an upgrade path to make the next generation the new hotness. In this video, we will be discussing possible avenues for future improvement of Apple Silicon Mac products. These are chips, physical redesign, screen, camera, keyboard, ports, the ports, and cooling. Let me know in the comment section below if I missed anything for the future Mac improvements. If you caught my last Apple video, I went over some of the reasons Apple would keep the same design. One thing I missed when I assessed why Apple would stay with the same design was that it allows them to avoid having additional variables added to the new design. Like when Toyota updates their vehicles, they tend not to redesign from the ground up. The same design allows the possibility of localizing any troubles that arise, since these new Macs are, as I mentioned before, beta testing for the wider releases, especially for professionals. Expect the possibility for upgrades every year, so the release cycle is now up to Apple's preference and not relying on what Intel can provide for them. With most of Apple's first generation products, the rate of improvement with the first few generations is very quick. Since this is essentially the X version of the A14 chip, they are already many generations into the chip designs, but many had the same idea with the original iPad, and it wasn't until the iPad 3 that the product was able to last leaps and bounds more than the original version. Even the software support for the iPad 2 was much longer than the original iPad. While quiet updates are not outside the realm of possibility for Apple, since they've done such things before, particularly with their Macs, often released through a press release when they update the processor in the machines. I do not actually expect this with the new generation of Macs. I expect Mac releases with the M series chips to follow release cycles akin to the iPads. Note that the iPad Air that was just released missed the release cycle last year, and it was upgrading to an A14 chip from the A12. In addition to the new chip, there are plenty of external hardware upgrades Apple has available. Redesign. A redesign of the total casing and body. Like the switch from PowerPC to Intel allowed for the creation of new designs, so will this transition from Intel to Apple Silicon. Expect the redesigns of the current M1 machines to be thinner and lighter, probably with the same battery life, as that is Apple's typical MO. My fear is that the redesigns vying for ultimate sleekness will hamper the capabilities of the future chips, what I would assume to be the M2 and so on. Though Apple has more leeway to leave the same guts when producing a new design, again, hearkening to the Toyota analogy. Something of a tick-tock method that they used to have with their iPhone releases. Screen. Apple has long been rumored to be working on a 14-inch MacBook. Their 15-inch went to a 16-inch, and they released a 12-inch MacBook in the past. So look for a 14-inch MacBook in about the same size chassis as a 13-inch. The screen for the MacBook Air has been updated to a P3 color gamut, which increases the number of discernible colors able to be displayed. With the inclusion of iPhone and iPad apps, be prepared for a touchscreen MacBook. This is long rumored, and Apple has vehemently denied this is in the works. But they often refute claims right up until the moment they reverse course. And then it's the newest thing ever. Nobody had this idea before, and we did it great. So Apple has included the ability to use iOS apps on the new MacBooks, since the architecture of the programming is the same. But the awkwardness of the mobile apps on non-touchscreen devices might be enough to tip the scales. They would not include it on this device, for one, because they didn't want to change the hardware. And for two, they want to assess what user interaction with the mobile apps is really like. Apple is very much in favor of privacy, so long as it suits them. See their failed ad platform. But they very much need our feedback to improve their own products. Camera. Once again, Apple has left us with a 720p camera on the current M1 MacBooks. They upgraded the image signal processor, which should help eke out some better images from that 720p camera, getting rid of a little bit of noise and such. They are presumed to have left the same hardware, and the results very much look the same. We saw an updated 1080p camera on the most recent Macs, and they were received with rave reviews. The camera samples reviewers showed, compared to even $300 standalone webcams, showed Apple's 1080p webcam blowing out the competition. We also know Apple has great cameras on their phones. My guess is that the next generation of MacBooks will have an updated camera system that will be up to the same standard that we expect from Apple on everything else. But we'll have to see what the next generation brings. Keyboard. Apple was rumored to be working on the next generation of the ill-fated butterfly keyboard. They have tried 3 versions of this thing until they eventually abandoned it and went back to the traditional scissor switch keyboard, what they now call the Magic Keyboard. I would not be surprised to see them take another crack at the butterfly keyboard, but butterfly keyboard has such a negative connotation at this point, they'll probably want to give it a different name. They might even just keep the same name as Magic Keyboard, and it'll be the 2021 Magic Keyboard. I/O. Ports. Expect the next generation of MacBook Pro to have at least 4 USB-C Thunderbolt ports. Now, the difference between USB-C style, USB Type-C, that's all very confusing. And if you want me to get into that, let me know down in the comments. It's not a pretty picture, but it is quite confusing. So if you want some clarification on how that all works, let me know and I'll walk you through it. The new MacBook Air has the same ports as the Intel version, but the new M1 MacBook Pro is akin to the low-end version of the Intel MacBook Pro, which means it also only has 2 ports. Cooling. Since the current M1 MacBook Pro is the most similar to the low-end version of the current Intel MacBook Pro, it only has 1 fan. When the next models are released, probably with the new chip, expect it to be sporting dual fans. As Apple learns the extent that the M1 chip can reach reliably, they will be willing to stress the M2 chip to greater limits with increased cooling. So, that was my video for the M1 chips. I hope you liked it, and if not, since you made it this far, I hope you at least found it informative. If you did, go ahead and give this video a like. It really helps the channel. Be sure to check out my other videos, and I'll see you in the next one.